Hey Internet, it's RJ. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning into this show today. Now, today's episode, we're going to look at the age-old debate on when you're building out your credit card arsenal. Should you prioritize your focus around keeper cards with high multipliers, or should you go big game hunting and go for the largest intro offers you can get for the most bang for your buck, if you will? So we're going to break that down. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each, and of course, I'm going to tell you where I land and how I'm approaching this as well. So, of course, if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. Now, we've kind of touched on this topic a while back if you follow the videos in sequential order, but not everyone watches every video. So over the past few weeks, we've really been focused on the state of the game in mid-2026, of how it's harder to get approved these days. We've also seen some cards go away, programs get kneecapped, on and on and on, right? You're living through it just like I am, so you're probably well aware. So when it comes to play, it's no longer that you can just put up a zillion shots, right? As we like to say, shoot or shoot, and we take credit inquiries like Skittles, meaning I don't worry about credit inquiries. I don't worry about submitting an application. I get my shots up, right? But we just really can't do that anymore because the issuers care, and many of them seem to care. So for this, we'll operate under like a 524 umbrella, if you will. If you've had 5 new accounts in the last 24 months, it's likely a denial. Not a hard and fast rule every place, but just for our purposes, that's kind of what we'll go with. So, on one hand, you're building out your wallet. You could go after keeper credit cards, and keeper credit cards are ones that you're not going to churn. You're going to keep for the long haul because they either have a high multiplier on them. Sometimes it can be for like hotel rewards and things of that nature, but we're primarily looking at multipliers. Now, on the other hand, you have cards that may be keeper cards. There's definitely some overlap in this Venn diagram of sorts, but you primarily are going after them for the intro offer. So quick example, I got a Cash Plus card back in March. Intro offer, $200. Doesn't really do much for you in the grand scheme of credit card offers. You wouldn't brag about it, but it's $200. So better than nothing. But for me, that card is a keeper card. I was getting it for the multipliers, not for the $200. I'm using it at 5% back at gym memberships and utilities, and I'm always going to train, and I'm always going to have utilities, unfortunately, so it's a keeper card. That's where I'm working on the Sapphire Reserve Business intro offer now, which I think is a god-awful product, really, but it doesn't matter because it's a 200,000 point intro offer, which when it's cash back at 1 cent per point is $2,000. So I'm going to get it, ditch the card, year number 2, very, very tried and true strategy. So, because you only have so many applications you're going to get approved for, you kind of have to pick. So where I landed, I'll tell you up front, is I tend to prioritize keeper cards first, then large intro offers. Sometimes, as we said, there's overlap. So I'll tell you why, and then we'll look at the other side of this as well. So there's a few things I wrote down, and for me, I will fight anyone, especially the Dave Ramsey cult, which I like Dave Ramsey and his cohorts more than most around here would guess. But I look at it as my credit cards is by the end of the year, that's actual income earned, and I'm always trying to make $5,000 minimum from credit cards. So having consistent multipliers to bring that money in, super helpful. Obviously, intro offers move that up significantly more, but if you go through and you prioritize having a high multiplier on all your top spend categories, then you'll have arguably, we'll say, consistent earning potential, consistent income, no matter what, because we don't always see high intro offers. We do oftentimes, but there's been periods of times where we really don't. And then once you have that base set up, then you're free to go hunt as many intro offers as you want. So I look at it as more so building your foundation to have consistent income. And then once I'm done with that, I'll go do the Sapphire Reserve Business, do that, and then I won't use these cards over here. And then when I'm done with that, I can come back to using these cards. It almost creates a balance so that you're always bringing in the most amount of money that you can, either a high intro offer or a high multiplier. The downside of that is it really does take time to build out your base of keeper cards. I've been doing this for quite some time now. I think my first Freedom card goes back to 2013, I want to say it's dated. So yes, over that many years, well over 10 years, 15 years, I have a solid base of cards. I'll put them on screen for you, a list of kind of how I have them broken out. We won't need to necessarily touch on all of them, but just so you know, like what we're working with there. So, that's kind of how I've done it. I've gone through and I just basically picked my highest spend categories and prioritized getting a card to cover them. I wanted to have a specific card to cover each category, so I didn't have to play the rotating category game anymore or even switch my cards around. I just know that one covers that, for example. So that's really why I focused on it. Plus, those cards, again, not always, but for me, everyone except for the autograph journey is a free card. So whether I use it or not doesn't really matter. It's not sitting there like, oh my gosh, I have to squeeze value out of this or I'm wasting money. So the other option, and I guess so there is overlap too. So for example, you can, when I was doing like the ink cash, right? There is, back when I had that card before the 900s were coming around, right? But there is some overlap in cards that end up being keeper cards that have high intro offers as well. Business cards are a good example. Autograph Journey for me, it's a $600 intro offer. Also, that I would say that's high enough. Also going to be a keeper card for myself. Now, the other side, the counter side of this of I just want to chase intro offers is, well, sure, the obvious answer is you're going to get is way more money. We can see that in this point illustrated. One inquiry, Cash Plus, $200. One inquiry, Sapphire Reserve Business, 200,000 points or $2,000. Yes, there's an annual fee to subtract and all that good stuff, but just for the math's sake, you can see $1,800 in favor of the Sapphire Reserve. Even if you want to take in the annual fee, then you're still at $1,000, difference, I want to say. So that's before you factor in the credits. And so those really do move the needle more in both cash back and especially if you're going to do travel. Larger offers probably even favor themselves more with travel because those cards, one, tend to come with, yes, a heftier annual fee, but you get a large intro offer, and a lot of times, especially in year number one, they also have coupons and credits that you can squeeze out some value depending on all of them. We don't need to break down all the credits and coupons. You're familiar with them, but we take something like the City Strahd Elite, which I think is a terrible card. My buddy Johnny out there loves the card. I like Johnny. I don't like his taste in cards. If he's watching, he might get a laugh out of this. Or I'll get a hate message. If this was live, I'd probably have a hate message already. I don't yet. It's good. Love my guy. So anyways, that card, you have these credits that basically, I forget what they call them, but this basically you can use it to get a few $100s back at Best Buy or something and a few other credits. So for that, you can cut down the annual fee, get most of it back, and you hit your big intro offer. And so for me, the problem is I think just the velocity of it. So a long time ago, I owned 2016 when the Sapphire Reserve came out and had its 100,000 point offer. I didn't really have the spend to do that back then. But now I have a ton of spend, which is unfortunate, but just how it goes. And so I could, go a few months and have realistically burned through my 5 slots. Maybe you get a little bit more out of it if they're business cards. But again, inquiries are still going to be a concern to most lenders these days as well. So a reasonable person would say, I think the answer kind of comes down to one, what are you trying to do? But I mean, the overall answer is both, right? Because we want all the money. So I mean, that's the overall answer, but we can't really you can do everything. You can't do everything all at once, cliche. So I would say is, for me, again, I go with the keeper cards, but I would start there, especially if you're earlier in the game, because the likelihood of that you're going to be able to hit these large offers, one, is going to be a little bit less, I would imagine. Number two, those are going to be free cards. Number three, it helps you learn and figure out, do you like travel? Do you like cash back? That whole thing. But number four, you get that solid base. And once you have your solid base established, which let's say it takes 2 years. You go a little bit slow. It takes 2 years to have most of your spend categories covered off. Then you're free to hunt intro offers, which is basically what I'm doing now. There's really not another card I can think of that would significantly change my earning potential. If you look at it, I using my autograph for transit and that's like ride shares and streaming is only 3x back, and we try to aim for 5, but I try to avoid ride shares unless I'm like specifically traveling somewhere and I have to, but I really try to avoid that. I don't pay for streaming. I just don't think it's worth it when the high C's are right there. So it wouldn't even make sense for me to try to increase that card to 5x. Maybe I do it just for gold plating because I want to keep playing the degenerate character, but wouldn't really make sense. So I'm pretty locked in now, barring, knock on wood, any program changes that make me have to reconsider. So I'm free to hunt intro offers. The other thing I would say is if you are more of a reasonable person, though, you could go after the higher intro offers. But that one, I think, depends on your velocity to start out. I've talked to a guy in the comments who was a reasonable person, way too reasonable to be in the comments section of a degenerate channel. He said, well, I do a new credit card every 3 months. I said, well, that's a very thoughtful, slow, and controlled way to do it. I have no chill, as the kids would say, and I would just keep going and keep getting cards, and have shot all my shots off in like 4 or 5 months, and then yeah, sure, some of them could be business cards probably, but then I'm still locked out for new cards for quite some time, a year and a half, let's say. So if you can do a more slow and controlled pace, then by all means, I think you might actually end up doing better with the intro offers, and then you could throw in a keeper card or two. But again, I would say the downside of doing that is once you run out, well, if you're following that velocity every 3 months and some business cards in the mix, you probably can keep going for quite some time. The thing to be aware of is once you run out of cards, you start catching a bunch of denials and you have to go into credit card exile to wait for them to fall off. Well, what are you going to do to earn money while you're in exile? And if you hadn't solidify your base, well, then you're not going to be earning anything. Hopefully, you at least got a 2% card out of it. Maybe some of those cards you can product change, but that's kind of my overall thought of like, do the base first, get your multipliers in line, so you have consistent credit card income, and then go big game hunting. If you want to kind of do a mix of the two, I think that's fine as well, because it really just depends on what you want to do. Or sometimes high intro offers come up and you're like, well, I gotta call an audible because we don't know how long this offer is going to be back. Like, who would have thought, the time of taping, the Sapphire Preferred's got a 100,000 point offer. I wouldn't say it's a keeper card for many, especially after the Hyatt devaluation on that card, but it's the best offer we've ever seen. So maybe you want to pause and go get it. So as long as you have a few set up to cover your spend, you can do it. You can also supplement with the old gift card buying stuff. I try to stay away from that. I used to do it all the time. It just became annoying and a hassle. So I try to stay away from that. So overall, I think it's a fun debate. The last one I'll add is the concern of nerfing as well, which we've already seen. If you take too long on one card that you want, who knows? Like, we've already said, like, hey, I'll get another custom cash. Well, look what happened with that. It's gone. Or, the city dividend card back in the day, or the old prestige, or we could keep naming cards that have come and gone. The Kroger card was one for me. I was like, I'll get it eventually. Well, now it's gone, right? So also, if there's something you really want, you're going to use, you might want to prioritize that over everything else. And that could be true of high intro offer cards as well, if it's a keeper and has some value, some coupon or something that you really want. So again, bottom line, I love the debate. I could certainly see the argument. You'll win value-wise, I think, if you say I'm going to go big game hunting and intro offers. For me, I'm glad that I've almost gold-plated my credit card setup. And while it's somewhat, weirdly enough, annoying that I can't really think of anything else I would add that would change anything for me, that's a good sign, which means I've done a decent enough job. I might know what I'm talking about, and I'm pretty much set. Now I'm going to go intro offer hunting again. The Sapphire Reserve business I'm doing now. On my list is the Amex Graphite. Again, another useless product, but $1,500 offer. And then I just opened a Citibank checking account, so I might be looking at it. I just made fun of them. The Strata Elite, which I won't be keeping, but high intro offer, easy to use coupons to lower some of that ridiculous annual fee. But I'm not necessarily missing out on anything, as we said. There's nothing else that I can really think of to add, but I'm definitely open for it. I like to make videos about discussion topics that come up in comments and past videos. So sound off down below. Let me know what strategy you did. Are you hardcore finalized setup, hardcore big game hunting, somewhere in the middle, or are you just getting old like me and playing so long it just doesn't even matter anymore? All money is good money. So anyways, guys, that'll do for this one. So of course, if you liked it, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, consider subscribing to the channel. So we're posting content just like this every single week, and of course, right back here every Sunday with all the news you could use in the week that was in credit and finance. And of course, every single day over on profitablecontent.com, which is of course the channel's blog, always linked down below for you, as well as on the channel homepage. We talk about news stories, bank promotions, and of course we have some credit card offers as well. Everything you need to get started, no matter which side you land on. Anyways, guys, that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you very soon in the next one.